Modern Yogis. Today we're going to be talking about Chaturanga Dandasana. It is a foundational movement that you see in all Ashtanga and Vinyasa classes. Since it's something we do quite often, alignment and safety is very important for the longevity of our practice. The movement involves lowering one's body down to the bottom of a push-up position, and it requires strength, stability, and again, attention to alignment and muscle engagement. We've got 6 quick tips to ensure you understand the hows and the whys of this familiar movement. That way you're set up for success, having all the knowledge that you need to move through this with confidence and strength. Tip number 1 is setting up the upper body with the correct alignment. We want hands to be shoulder width apart, and we want to feel the shoulders stacked over the elbows, stacked over the wrists. All 10 fingers are spread wide, palms are pressing firmly, and you can notice those arms are perpendicular to the ground. From a different angle, you'll realize why this is so important. As we bend the elbows, we want them to come in towards the body. We don't want them to flare out, which is easy to do if your hands are too wide or too far to the front. Tip number 2 is engaging the core, and we're not just talking about abdominals here. We do need to pull the navel up and in to brace the belly. Imagine you've got those jeans that are a little bit too tight. You know the dance you do to get in them, up and in. That's what we need here. Additionally, we want to squeeze the glutes, those big muscles behind you, and the quads, the muscles on the top of your thighs, so everything is tight and light. This is going to help you control the shape and provide stability as you begin to move. Tip number 3 really ties into tip number 2, and that's creating a long line of energy through the body. At this point, you've seen me do a plank in both a kneeling position. Notice the line from the crown of my head back through the knees, and through a higher option up on the toes. That line continuing from crown of head back through the heels. That's going to keep your spine in a neutral alignment. Tip number 4 is lowering with control. As always in yoga, we want to be moving with our breath, mindfully noticing the sensations in our body. So whichever option you're choosing, knees or toes, we want to bend those elbows only to 90, and we do it on an exhale with control. So lowering smoothly, confidently, elbows in nice and tight. Tip number 5 is about protecting the shoulder. It's a complicated joint with lots of muscles that cross over. There's just a couple of details, if we pay attention, that will really help us maintain stability and strength through this movement. We want to avoid collapsing through the chest and back or allowing the shoulders to hunch up towards the ears. So if you go back to our previous tips of engaging the abs, finding that nice long line, and setting your shoulders up over your wrists, that will help you lower with control and protect those shoulders. Tip number 6 is modify if necessary. And that doesn't just mean if you're new to this movement or new to yoga. Sometimes we need to go back in our training and our practice so that we can tweak and improve small things. Chaturanga is one of the poses that a lot of times could use a little bit of love. If you're trying to build strength, moving up from a kneeling chaturanga to a plank chaturanga, a block is an easy, effective tool to help. What you can do is come onto your knees and then tuck this block either on the first level or the second level, just between your legs above the knees. Go ahead and squeeze that block in. You're gonna feel the muscles, the adductors on the inside of your legs, and maybe even your pyramidalis down low in your belly, engage. I know those are complicated words. All you have to know is deep core muscles are activating, and that's a good thing. Coming forward into that kneeling plank, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the quads, and then lift off onto your toes. Check in to make sure you're maintaining that line of energy, and you can practice here by holding the plank 10, 15, 30 seconds, maybe a couple of rounds, and then when you're ready, take it through the full chaturanga. Other poses that you can practice to build strength. Plank, we've seen it before. Yes. Down dog, hips up, heels low, eye gaze back. Draw the core in tight, and even imagine your rib cage pulling in so you get all those abdominals nice and tight. If you can practice these confidently and you're looking for a little bit more, you can drop the elbows down and come into dolphin pose. The closer in your feet walk, the more weight moves into your upper body and the more challenging this is. The key is to press firmly from the shoulder and to be easy with your breath. 4 common mistakes to look for with your Chaturanga. The first would be having your hands too far forward. Notice that we're not perpendicular to the ground and our shoulder is not stable. Walking the toes forward will correct that issue. Second mistake we see a lot of, dumping the belly out. Unless those abdominals are pulled up and in, a ton of pressure happens to your lumbar spine, and over time that can cause discomfort and injury. The rotation from the shoulder is also important. A common mistake is rotating the elbows out, which shifts the focus from triceps into chest, which is not the purpose of this movement. As you stack those hands, shoulder width apart and directly underneath your shoulders, my little tip is rotating the fingers out just a few degrees. Notice how the crease of the elbow is now facing forward, and when we lower, everything's in alignment, biceps rubbing the ribs. The last mistake that happens, especially when people get tired, is dropping the head as they're lowering down. That line of energy is so important to feel the pose correctly, also to keep your body safe. We want all the vertebrae in our spine in one long line. So if we drop the head, or maybe you hunch and arch and drop the head, you can imagine this is gonna feel terrible and eventually lead to some discomfort. So, eye gaze forward, out towards the horizon, breathing on the way down. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to hearing feedback on how these tips have helped you.